Yo, this is Hoss Funk the Trunk Master with the 6th edition of Deep Cutz, where I highlight a dope, non-single track from an album that is otherwise known for its banging singles. Let's go! Now this episode is going to highlight a song from a group that people who are only familiar with mainstream hip-hop might consider a one-hit wonder. But me, I wouldn't call them that. Though they might only have a couple albums under their belt, they had a lot of dope joints. The group I'm talking about is Black Sheep. Now I became familiar with Black Sheep when their first singles dropped in 1991 or so. I believe Flavor of the Month was the first song I heard, and it had a really jazzy feel, and Drez's flow and lyrics were quite memorable. They were instantly likable, and their subsequent singles were equally dope. One of them, The Choice Is Yours, would end up propelling them to superstardom, with that memorable breakdown being played in clubs for decades to come. Now, if you listen to some of the earlier episodes, I spoke about me not buying the more popular albums at the time, and Black Sheep's debut album was one of those albums. They blew up so much that I didn't feel the need to get their album, as I had a few songs already on mixtapes, and I thought I probably heard enough. Sadly, I didn't get to enjoy their first album in its entirety until decades later. However, a few years later, in the fall of '94, I started listening to a radio show called the Mastermind Street Jam. And on one of the first shows, I heard a new single from Black Sheep called Without a Doubt. I really liked it, and I thought it was going to be their big return to prominence, as they hadn't put out much since their first album. This time too, Mr. Long was rapping on the song, and he brought hilarious punchlines, which made it even better. So I was really looking forward to their next album, especially after their next single, Northeast Southwest. And when their album Nonfiction came out a few months later, I ended up getting it on CD through one of those music ordering schemes, where you pay like pennies for a bunch of albums, then gotta pay a little more for an album later, but can cancel the subscription or something like that. Anyway, I got the album, but I didn't even have my own CD player yet. I was still buying cassettes mostly, so I wasn't able to listen to it unless I used the CD player that was set up in my family's living room. So when I finally listened to it, I had to kind of skip through it quickly. One thing I noticed was that the version of Northeast Southwest was different, and I found out that the version I heard on the radio was a remix version produced by Showbiz. One song on this album really stood out to me though, and that is this episode's Deep Cut. The song is called BBS, or Bubblin' Brown Sugar, and it is a super dope, jazzy little joint. The track starts off with some smooth saxophone leading into Drez's intro before a pounding snare drum kicks in with playful keyboards, as Drez starts his verse just brimming with confidence and braggadocio. The hook has a woman singing Bubblin' Brown Sugar, an interpolation of an old song of the same name. Now, I don't love hooks of women singing, but this is definitely palatable, not annoying, and the dope beat continues on, with saxophone in the background and these butter-smooth, high-pitched keys that come and go throughout the track. And when they do kick in, Drez turns up the aggression in his verses and goes hard, straight for the kill. It's just such a banging song, and I think it's one that sets a perfect mood for when you're cruising in your car at night. If you haven't heard this joint, click the link in the description. So, big up to Black Sheep, Drez and Mr. Long, and thank you for making amazing music that I can still enjoy decades later. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and look out for another episode of Deep Cutz. Peace from the East.